Let's quickly cut across to News Director Rahul Kawal, who is joined in by Junaid Ahmad, World Bank's Country Director for India. Here's what he has to say.
The World Bank's executive directors have today announced that there will be a $1 billion special protection response program given to the government of India to enable the battle against COVID-19. Joining us right now, Junaid Ahmad, World Bank Country Director for India. Junaid Ahmad, welcome. Can you start by explaining to us the time frame in which this package will be made available and how you hope the money will be used?
Well, I'm very pleased to tell you that the package will be available by Monday. The board approved it yesterday, and we will deliver the resources by Monday. But let me put this in a context. You know, we're partnering with government of India in the fight against COVID-19. About a month ago, we engaged in a $1 billion operation on health. But the health program around the world, as you know, has had a very particular aspect. It's introduced social distancing. And what the social distancing has done is that it's forced governments to slow down the economy. In slowing down the economy, it has led to a trade-off between the lives and livelihood. And as a response, governments around the world to protect the vulnerable. We're talking about 50% of the population of India to bridge a time when the economy is slowed down to a time when the economy will revive. So this is
Can you give us some sense of how you think this money will be used? From what we are reading, this could help scale up cash transferred and food benefits. So which are the kind of schemes into which this money is likely to be funded?
Lines in our social and economic systems. If you look at the West, what has become very clear that COVID has had a disproportionate impact on the minority communities, on aged. In India, we have seen that it has had an impact on migrant laborers. It has an impact on the workers in the unorganized sector. And in fact, the social protection system that India has now pivoted towards, that we're supporting, is a very distinct shift to support migrants, to support the unorganized workers, 90% of the labor force. But in addition, it is one where portability will happen. So regardless of where people are, as they move from one state to the other, they'll be able to take with them their whole story of benefits. And finally, it's a program in which the center is working with the state through the NDMA and the State Disaster Response. And the State Disaster Response Fund has introduced in this new system a program of fiscal transfers. States need money to respond to hotspots and to the conditions on the ground.
Can you tell us which are the specific schemes into which you think the government will be pumping in this money over and beyond what's already been announced? How much of an enabler will this be to try and ensure that cash is made available directly to those who need it the most?
Very important question, because our resource is not about a scheme. Government of India has built its social protection system on some very important pillars. One pillar is the PDS system, the food assistance system. Another is the Jan Dhan, the Aadhaar, and the mobile system, where cash grants can be given to, I think, almost 300 million plus account holders, predominantly women. And then you have Manrega. These are three very, very fundamental aspects of the social program. But in addition to that, there are hundreds of other social protection systems. What we're doing is supporting government in taking what is predominantly a rural-focused system and making it a pan-national system, recognizing in an urbanizing economy, migrants and urban poor and urban workers need support. So shifting the PDS, shifting the cash system into the hands of the migrants, ensuring portability. And that's very important, because today there is a fear that migrants going back to their home will not come back because of the pain that they have faced in this COVID crisis. But portability gives them comfort that if they come back, they bring with them the benefits that is owed to them, while their families continue to get the benefits in their own residence, whether it's Bihar or Telangana or elsewhere. So to your question, whether we're putting our money in any specific schemes, no. What we're putting our money is working with government to create this pivot to a much more coordinated, integrated system of social protection, one that I believe is positioning India into a 21st century social protection system. That is quite a watershed moment for India, just like Manrega was a watershed moment several years ago.
What's the World Bank's sense of how India's welfare measures so far compare with those announced by other governments worldwide? Anything in particular that you think the government in India has done well? Any area that you'd like to highlight as an area of concern which should be focused on even more?
Well, I think, first of all, government of India has over the years been investing in several aspects, which, as I said, are the pillars of the social safety system, the cash transfer system directed towards women in particular, the food distribution system, which at one point was not efficient, but today it has managed to deal with the leaks and is a far more efficient system. This combination of in-kind as well as cash grants, the delivery of gas cylinders, which are extremely important in supporting communities, and in particular women. All of these form the foundations. But as India builds from these foundations, the question is, which direction does it go? And COVID crisis, I think, has revealed the direction it needed to go. One, support the migrants. Two, support the unorganized worker. And that's extremely important, because the future of work in India, indeed around the world, is going to rely more on the gig economy. It's going to rely on the informal economy, and you need to create a social protection system that actually affords the protection to these workers that don't have access to the traditional forms of social security. Those are, I think, the issues that are going to make a big difference. But from my perspective, one of the biggest positives that we are beginning to see is that it's a systemic change that is happening. It's not just a simple scheme that has been introduced, and that's a watershed moment for India.
What's the World Bank's estimate on the quantum of loss to the Indian economy as a result of the COVID-induced lockdown? And what's your forecast in terms of what the growth numbers in India could look like relative to how other countries in the world are doing?
Well, first of all, I think we must recognize worldwide that this COVID pandemic has made a huge hit on the economy of nations. So you're beginning to see in countries growth rates falling significantly. United States is in the negative territory. Several countries in Europe barely crossing the 0%. Our projections in India last we did was somewhere around 1.5 to 2.8%. But we recognize that this is all dependent on how long the COVID impact continues, how long lockdowns continue. And I think that even 1.5, 2.8 may be optimistic, and we may see a downward revision, as already many are doing. Across the world, we're seeing unemployment. Here, too, we're beginning to see the unemployment, which is why this emphasis on the social protection is absolutely critical, because no nation, no country in the world, no government in the world is going to allow a trade-off between lives and livelihoods. And the social protection is the bridge that hopefully will bridge the poor and the vulnerable between a time when the economy is at its downturn and as it begins to improve over time. Again, the logic of what government of India is doing needs to be remembered. Health intervention, social protection, and then economic stabilization with an emphasis on small and medium enterprise. It's the connection of the three that is extremely important. But
you spoke of social protection. There have been some changes recently in crucial Indian states on labor laws. I'm wondering if the World Bank has any view on the changes that have been made when it comes to labor reform through suspension of rigid labor laws.
We are in the process of looking at some of the changes that have been done. So I'm not able to give you a full answer on that, but there are a couple of issues that I think that are very, very relevant. One is that the changes at the state level, and there have been changes at the national level. I think it's very important that the two must meet and the two must actually strengthen the ability of laborers to work in the labor market in India. I think that's the first. Second is, what the social protection program is doing is precisely addressing a big issue in the labor markets where the informal worker, the unorganized worker, was outside the social benefit system. And today the social benefit system is moving into supporting the informal worker. And most importantly, it is one that is moving towards supporting the migrant worker, because we're going to see that labor mobility is going to be very, very important, not only for today, but for the future of India. And you need to create a social protection system that's portable by the migrants so that they're able to respond to labor market signals around the country. So from that perspective, the social protection system is responding to what I think are some of the fault lines of the previous labor codes.
What does the World Bank think of the financial stimulus and revival package that the Indian government's rolled out so far? How, in your view, does this compare with other economies, both at the same level as India in their stage of economic evolution and other countries with which India can be compared?
I think the other big story of the COVID-19 is the presence of the government across the world. United States, 14% of GDP. Japan, 21% of GDP. Europe, somewhere 5 to 6% of GDP. Governments are stepping up and putting fiscal and monetary stimulus on the ground, both to deal with the health expenditures, the social protection, as well as to begin the economic stabilization. From that context, India, in its announcements and what it has done over the last several months, is very much in line. Again, using both monetary as well as fiscal intervention. But here I have to say a couple of things. One is that it was important for government of India, as well as other governments around the world, to intervene now. Because if you don't intervene now, you're going to have to land up intervening even in a deeper way in the future. So that's a very important issue. Second is, I think government of India has been tactical in responding sequentially, because the situation is uncertain out there. As the situation is uncertain, we don't know whether it's going to need to intervene even more in the future. So it needs to be measured in the way it intervenes. And I think government of India is doing that. But most importantly, whether it's 10%, 8% of GDP, whether it's a mixture of fiscal or monetary, the key is, what's the strategy behind this engagement? And I think the strategy of health expenditure, social protection, and economic stabilization with a focus on MSME is the right strategy. And I think it's in the implementation of these programs that we're going to see whether or not the strategy will have the impact that government of India wants to have.
Junaid Ahmad, World Bank Country Director for India, for joining us with your thoughts. Thank you very much. Several questions have been asked about why more direct cash transfers haven't been made available to vulnerable migrants. With this $1 billion coming in from the World Bank, maybe it opens the route for direct transfers to be initiated just over the next few days. The money, the World Bank India director said, will be made available by Monday.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.